Nel labirinto non troverete draghi o creature degli abissi. Invece affronterete qualcosa di molto più impegnativo.
My favourite task to do was probably the maze, because I just really like the idea of it. I just think it's such a scary concept.
The maze amplifies the negative points in your character.
The hedges move and we fight each other inside it. You know, it's a huge competition.
There's a very strong implication that the maze is alive.
We all started to realize the maze itself is a creature.
The roots are terrifying, they're menacing, they're just gonna snag you if you let them.
It's quite creepy.
This film, Goblet of Fire, we had the maze, which was a fairly major scene which we had to tackle and shoot very early on. We had to create quite large sections of this maze that moved and developed its own persona. So early on in the movie, that was our sort of biggest challenge. It had to be able to chase the children through it. It had to move as though it was going to crush them with the actors inside. That involved for us quite a huge engineering build because the walls of the maze were 25 feet high.
In our case, we tried to make it taller than you've ever seen and bigger than you've ever seen. So you're in channels which are just 5 feet wide, but 25, sometimes 40 feet high. So it gets pretty intense and pretty desperate in there.
The maze scene was quite claustrophobic, really.
Set, action.
The very first time I went on set, we were filming the maze, and it was absolutely enormous, and, you know, I was new to the whole thing. So, you know, I was quite nervous, and, you know, my heart was like, you know, literally pumping really fast.
You will encounter no dragons in the maze or creatures of the deep.
The maze itself was really sort of mystical. It was, you know, loads of smoke around, so everyone was really interested and excited about what was going to happen.
Action!
The maze has a malign personality. It's like being alone in a completely dark, soundproofed room. You begin to doubt your own existence.
It's a really creepy sequence because you're not sure what the danger is when you go in, and we immediately get a sense that the maze has a life of its own.
Cut. Very good. A little sooner, okay? Once more.
Mike actually was very keen to make it very much more psychological.
The maze is not the only danger within, because while in the maze, things can happen. It's the fear about not knowing what's behind the next corner, not knowing what's behind any corner. There's mist, you can't see very far, you've got the live maze, and that's really shocking.
The maze is, acting-wise, the most interesting task, because really it was exploring how deep you can go into that fear thing.
It's like it reduces you to your animal components, and you become savage and wild and uncivilized.
Everything's a bit magical, and so we took that and made the maze a living creature too that actually attacks.
It's tremendously violent, incredibly active, and that could only be achieved in the digital arena.
We have CG hedges, lots of wide CG establishers of the maze environment, from close-up detail to the big, broad, grand scale.
Because we set this thing in Scotland, the scale of that landscape was playing a part in this.
With the establisher shots, I think the most important thing was to make it just seem gigantic and how small they are within it. So you have this first shot where you come up from Harry and then you show the whole maze and it's like as big as the valley. It's gigantic. There are points in the sequence where Harry and other characters get attacked by hedges and attacked by roots and chased by hedges, and our task was to make it just claustrophobic and dangerous and just generally very, very, very scary.
We start off with a live action plate and any 3D elements that have been developed. We bring those and integrate them into the live action plate to try and make something look seamless and totally photorealistic.
Almost 90% of the routes you see is visual effects. All these sequences we had to add CG routes to the scene to make it more dangerous and scary. You know, how does a route attack? The animation team would spend a lot of time just sort of like hitting each other with them and trying things out with them.
Start the effect!
I think the balance came was they always had to be quite gnarly and angular. Brief moments they could go straight, then they could wrap around things very quickly. There's that balance between whip and snake and a root-y character. Cedric's on ground, originally shot with ropes tied to him, you know, pulling him around. So we paint out the ropes and then add these roots that seem to whip and grab him and try and throttle in him. Lots of energy. It's pretty scary stuff.
And action!
Our task was to make the maze scary, spooky and eerie and trying to stop them at every possible corner.
What's scariest about it is the dark avenues.
Che prova, eh? Che prova.
Ultimately, it's really leading you to the final challenge, which is the battle with Voldemort.